Seek and ye shall find. That seems to work. As presence being the fabric behind everything, it's the canvas behind the painting. If you keep looking, presence will start unfolding itself in front of you, and it will show you that you're more than who you thought you were. For me, I have been having some really unbelievably ecstatic feelings for no reason, and it's just starting to happen. And um, it reminds me of when I was a kid, and now I'm kind of remembering how it used to be, how everything was mystical. And seek and ye shall find seems to be a funnel to get you in the right direction, as long as it's based in presence. If you don't have presence, if you can't get into the now, then it's hard to pull yourself out of your thoughts. And one of the biggest thoughts for me that took me down a dark road consistently without me even knowing it was caring how I was perceived. That's the worst part of the ego, in my opinion. Um, One shouldn't care how they're received. You just be happy wherever you are and be in presence. Always find that space that takes you out of how when you're caring to perceive, when you're caring how you are perceived. For me, it's getting behind the eyes. There is a deep space behind the 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 innermost layer of skin. There's a space back there. It always takes me out of how I'd be received, because it's my inner being, and it always relieves me from that thing of how um, from caring how I am perceived. Some people want to get presence with some ego, the best parts of the ego, and if they're able to get rid of their ego and build it up fine, back again, fine. But I don't see, and I could see the benefit of that. The benefit of that is that you relate to other people better. But on the flip side, is when are you going to be aware when the caring how you are perceived and saying I should have said this, I should have done that, when is that kind of stuff going to cross into the part that you're going to think that you are it's the good part of your ego, and not something that's creeping in, hijacking your beingness. Um, but here is a way that when I get into that thing where I start caring about how I are perceived, like I said, I get behind the veil, and and that always takes me out of that thing. But then there's the other part of it. Since maybe your ego is really, really small now, that you're really getting good at taking yourself out of those thoughts that are non-productive and even destructive. Do you want to build the ego back up again? I mean, you're getting close to singularity, and I would imagine that when you get rid of, when this life is complete, that part of going to the next dimension, or however somebody looks at it, singularity is going to be part of it, because I'm sure in the upper dimensions, nobody wants to know about your ego. And nobody wants to know about my ego. I will only speak for myself. So that's why um, sometimes, if it's the good part of the ego, um, I won't punish myself too much. Rah, 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 it will just be um, awareness that makes sure that I don't get into that part of my ego where it is caring about external validation to um, to complete who I am. Because once you learn to get in that deep spot that's behind the veil, everything becomes just so beautiful. You don't care what anybody else has or anything like that. You're like, I don't care if they have $1 trillion. It doesn't matter to me. What I found is better than $1 trillion. It truly is, because life is not going to last forever. And to put your focus on everything that is here in this life that you are doing now is to invest in all your hard work into something that is fleeting. And you might think, oh, big deal, I'm here, but it just won't give you that happiness. Once you find out what presence truly gives you, and the amount of ecstatic you will feel, you'll know that there's nothing that could be given that could take you away once you find it. And always presence always always takes me to this place now that I've been working on it, and trying to be aware of my thoughts every second of every day, or at least checking in. But I've been getting pretty good at becoming aware when something is crawling into my psyche that is taking me down without even me knowing it. And one of the biggest things that was taking me down personally was that caring about how I was perceived. But seek and ye shall find also works in other ways, where I took tools that other people were giving, and that all of them were not the same, and I would incorporate them for certain amounts of time, and I would find out which ones worked. And just seeking this type of clarity and this type of relief from the suffering, you will find it. If you stick with it, you will find it. And even if you go at it slowly, you will find it. So it's like a funnel where it always leads you to the right direction. And that's when presence starts unfolding itself. And you start realizing that it's much more than it is. Why was this back here? Why is something so spectacular that makes it so that I don't care what anybody else has? Even if everybody in this world had $1 trillion, I would not give a shit. Where did that come from? Because that's not who I've always been. I could tell you that. So, but anyways, I diverted a little there. But I try to grab I have a spiritual tool belt of the tools that I use the best. And this is the funnel from which I let the sand sift to get the ones that work the best for me. And that's what I mean when I say seek ye shall find, because even if you get it wrong, even with all of the backtracking, all of the nervous breakdowns, because to go this path for me has meant nervous breakdown after nervous breakdown. It was just a total it was a total surrender that what I had built up, my ego, was was a faulty foundation. It wasn't a proper ego. And who can truly make a perfect ego? Because when you start your ego, you're maybe 7, 8 years old, and you're incorporating this thing of how you want to be received, who you are, what you want to say, how you want to be, and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's mostly about not how you want to be, it's how you're perceived, because the ego, as far as I was concerned, was definitely built on a faulty foundation. It was, in my opinion, the word I would use is destructive. And so I had to break down that foundation. And that's what I knew. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but what I knew is that the sledgehammer had to come in, and I need to get off this path that I was on. And that's what led me to one thing where somebody said something. The first words were, you are who you are now. You are not your past actions. And then I gave that some thought, and I said, that's right, I'm not my past actions, because how can I be here right now and be in my past actions? And then that got me started on a path where I found a person who was very entertaining at speaking about presence, and that made it much easier. And then that's when it seemed like some really cool things were unfolding before me. And the biggest one of those is not giving a shit what anybody else has. That was a really nice one, because that was calming, and it allowed me to always be present, because um, without any of those external distractions, the path will always take you, the path that you have gone will always take you to presence, which is right now, right? All the stuff that happened behind me dropped me off right here, right in this second right now. So when I get here and I use the other tools that I use for presence, then then there's no there's just really no life focus, and it's no matter what happens to me, what I found um, is something that's more beneficial to me than anything that's material, for sure there. But it's even more than that. But I won't say that I'm totally there because I still see things unfolding. Um, and some people might say, "Oh, you're gonna jinx yourself by doing this." But with presence, you never jinx yourself because you can always get back into presence. It's always there. It's always untainted, and it's always the same. It makes you drop those thoughts that you were having that were being non-productive. So, in my case, seek and ye shall find has been the funnel that allows me to find the best tools that work for me. And even if it takes somebody longer, like I said, for me it had to be quicker because I realized that this is not working. That this ego that I built up was just so destructive to me, destructive to stuff, just destructive. So once I decided that I had to tear down the house and start over, then that's where seeking um, unraveled itself. So it might take you longer, and it might take you a lot of backtracking. It took me a lot of backtracking. I remember a few times where I was like, no more contrast, no more suffering. Please God, I've done enough, you know. And I went through those times, and those times are dark times, obviously, but it's the dark times that forge the metal. It's the dark times that make contrast such a beautiful thing where when you have contrast, when you know the bad, it's just a lot better to know the good. And once you find out where presence is for you, then you will truly know the good, and then you will see how contrast made the good so much better. And a few mornings, just spontaneous, a few times this morning, just spontaneously, I just had these really good feelings, like when I was a kid, just really naive and everything like that, of the mysticalness of this moment, of everything that's going on right now. So you can't say life because that's the whole thing. You don't want to ever focus on the whole thing. The best place to be is right where your path has dropped you off, just like you're on a school bus and you get off of the school bus and there's school. The path has dropped me off to where I am right now, which is this moment. And the path always drops you off there. Um, yeah. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for listening, and you have a great day.